get yourself some Onyx and start planning your hunt. Like, because I don't have a week to go to New Mexico and scout.
Right.
It's all done virtually and like on the fly when I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've got 3 kids. My wife, I'm going to leave for 3 weeks to go elk hunting. She's like, let's see if I'm still here when you get back.
All right, what is up, everybody? Gonna talk about one of our favorite topics here at Vortex, and that's deer. Deer. They're dear to us, Jim.
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear, exactly. Oh, yeah. But a little twist to this one, because one thing that we haven't talked about, really, I don't think ever on the podcast, is Texas deer hunting. Deer hunting in Texas, in the great state of Texas. Very strong deer hunting culture there. Lots of deer hunters. I'd say in some ways it can be different than maybe other regions of the U.S. And to help us unpack Texas deer hunting, we have special guest Cable Smith from the Lone Star Outdoor Show. Cable, we've been working with you for a long time.
Yeah.
Welcome to Vortex. It's great to have you here.
It is impressive to be here. And you guys have a pretty awesome deer hunting culture, too, because everybody's got a deer, a Euro mount on their desk, it seems like. So, or some shed antlers or something,
Yeah, the Euro mount and shed flex has been pretty strong lately.
Yeah,
so,
well, we got that one new guy down there in tech support area. He hasn't been on the podcast yet, but we're planning to have him on.
Yeah.
And he just decided he was just going to come in, nobody knowing him yet, and just bring every elk shed that he's ever found and put it on his desk.
There's kind of a waterfall
It's
effect.
the equivalent of when, they tell you if you ever get into prison, you have to pick a fight with somebody immediately,
Right.
To try and then get put in solitary not get in trouble or whatever, or at least prove
you
that
make a statement.
Yeah. That's what he did.
It's like Cool Hand
he
Luke.
came in. Yeah, he punched us right in the face when he came in.
Set the tone. Yeah, there's always been an element of there's always Euros and, people, if you got a wall, shoulder mount or this, that, the other. But
I feel the same goes for Texas, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys sometimes just put it on the hood of your Cadillac.
I don't know about that. Usually that's like a Longhorn.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the movies, Jim.
Is shed hunting big here?
Yeah.
See, back home, like, it's not that big of a deal.
Really?
No. But like the Western guys, they obsess over it.
It's a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big deal.
It's big for everybody else in the rest of the state too, right? Because we get exposed to the Western hunting guys all the time at Vortex, but it seems like everybody around Wisconsin generally gets into.
We got a pretty quick window around here. The mice and stuff get at ours.
It's true.
Pretty
you don't have
quick.
long.
But yeah, the old shed flex around here that escalated pretty quickly downstairs. Yeah, so it's not a big deal. Do you find them a lot, though? I'd imagine you find tons of them.
I find some, and I usually just kick it out of the way and like make sure I'm not going to run over it with my truck.
Oh, my gosh.
Poke a hole in the tire. And that's like sacrilege to a
that
lot of
seems
people.
Criminal.
But we have so many hogs, so would I rather go hunting for like an animal, or would I rather go look for sheds? I'd rather go hog hunting because it's year-round fun.
That's, yeah, I get that.
I think I would still like pick it, like if I saw one, I'd like pick it up and I'd,
You've been hardwired to
but,
do it.
But here's my question. So a lot of these guys, and I've talked to a lot of the Western guys I've had on my show, they just have them stacked up in their garage. Like, what do you ever do with them? It's like, I don't do anything with them. I just put that one with the rest of them in the garage.
Candle holders. Mostly candle holders.
Yeah.
Cable's like, I don't know, I'm going to go eat some hog ribs.
Yeah.
I know exactly where I put these in my belly.
Mm-hmm.
Cable. Once again, welcome, though. I'm trying to bring us back to deer here, Jim.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of were talking about
Texas deer, though.
Texas deer. So what you are, before we get too deep, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you have going on.
Yeah.
I get excited, Jim. I want to dive right in.
Yeah.
So I host the Lone Star Outdoor Show. I actually got a degree in radio, TV, film. That was, wanted to do radio and kind of fell into outdoor radio. I took a job like in Podunk, East Texas, and the owner of the radio station was like, hey, you got to host a weekly outdoor show. And I was like, okay, cool. I guess maybe I should like shoot a deer since I've never done that. But, that was like, I grew up bass fishing and just fell in love with hunting like college, got into ducks and got a lab that I was telling you about a lab and got the lab with this girl, and she left, and he stayed, and I just fell in love with hunting, and was like, now fishing is kind of like something I do when there's nothing to hunt, but still love it. But yeah, my dad was just a huge bass fisherman. We didn't have guns in the house, so I've really been doing this like 15 years, I'd say.
Oh, no kidding, huh?
Yeah,
I figured
hunting.
you were just a lifer, you know?
Well, lifelong outdoorsman, but
Right.
didn't own a gun until I was 21 years old. So, yeah.
God bless America. I'm
I
glad
know.
you saw the
I
light.
know. But anyway, so he's like, you got to host a weekly hunting and fishing show. I was like, all right, I'll do that.
Yeah, you're like, I got the fish side covered.
Yeah. And I was into bird hunting then.
Yeah.
But I had never shot a deer. So I was like, all right, how do I figure out where to go shoot a deer, So that was 13, 14 years ago.
Yeah, and maybe not so easy a task in Texas.
No, because we don't have a lot of public land.
Yeah.
So I, went out on my own, started my own show. And one of the first sponsors I had was like, you can come shoot a deer with me. I was like, okay, cool. And he's like, I'm not going to gut it for you. And I was like, that's fine. I'll figure that out too. So yeah, really it's kind of self-taught as far as the big game hunting goes. And I think a lot of people don't get into hunting or are intimidated by it because are they going to look stupid asking a question on a forum or on social media or something like that. So I think we need to do a better job welcoming those people.
Yeah.
Not making them feel dumb because, hey, like myself, I didn't grow up doing it. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with a lot of that stuff, and we're kind of sidetracking into some of the recruitment aspects to hunting, but I think that is one of the most intimidating parts. Is like people are like, hey, I want to do this. I enjoy the outdoors. I want to procure some meat for myself and my family. What if I get one?
right.
Then
what?
Then what?
Yeah.
Like, oh boy, it's dead.
Yeah.
And I guess get the insides on the outside. That's what I always say.
Like, is it
That's a good way to put it.
why is it intimidating? You know what I mean? Because think about somebody back in, I don't know, 18, whatever, 19, early something. I mean, were they intimidated by I need to eat. I'll shoot the thing that's covered in meat and running around in the woods. You just go up to it, and like you said, Mark, I mean, yeah, okay, we need to eat that. Let's get the insides on the outside. But nowadays, it's so much like, well, what if some guy that's my friend on Facebook that's really not my friend at all tells me that I did it wrong? That's the only reason it's intimidating.
Sure. I totally agree.
Well,
Yeah.
and I'd have to think from back then too, Jim. Like, not too many people are coming from a non-hunting family. They're like, if you did, you probably were dead.
Yeah. Well, but also you could just YouTube it now. I mean,
Yeah, that too.
So there's definitely ways to do it. But yeah, so back to the question you asked. I've been doing this full time 12 years. Actually used my degree, which is crazy.
Awesome.
Right? Yeah.
Congratulations.
Back then it was just a radio show. This was before podcasts were really even a thing. So it still airs on about 25 radio stations in Texas, and I think probably as many people listen to it via podcast these days as they consume on terrestrial radio. So
Terrestrial.
yeah.
Sounds like something I'd throw at a riverbank.
Haven't taken that extra yet, huh? Not just yet.
So the show that you started, then that is the show today.
That is, and I feel like sometimes I pigeonhole myself with Lone Star Outdoor Shows. It's like Texas, and so much of what I do now is like has nothing to do with Texas, and the stories or the guests that I want to talk to, totally unrelated to Texas. But that's the brand, and so we're just kind of it is what it is.
Do you feel like that's because have you covered like everything there is to cover in Texas, or is it you being like, I've done so much in Texas, I want to see what else is out there? Or
It's some of both.
Okay.
Sometimes it's like, oh, okay, are we gonna have I just recorded an interview with our Dove program leader.
Oh,
Dove
cool.
is like a national holiday, September 1st in Texas. But it's like, is it the same interview over and over again? Just a different year?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think we went 4 years between those because I was like, I don't want to do that this time.
Yeah.
So I had this pair of dove nesting on my patio, and they are right now today nest number 4 of this. Like they started in March, here we are in August, and they're on nest number 4. So that made me think, what is up with dove biology? These things really nest 4 times
So
in a season?
like the
Same pair of dove. Yeah.
and fully like raise them up, take them out the nest, start
Bye-bye,
again.
do it again. And
didn't know
the
that
biologist
happened.
was like, they'll do it up to 6 times if conditions are good.
That just seems inefficient.
But Texans kill 7 million dove a year, so we need them to do that good work.
Yeah. Doves are an interesting bird, man. I'm gonna have to actually tune back into that show over yours because their biology is pretty wild. Like as far as like they don't appear to be, to me when I've hunted them, to
Smart?
be like the most
Let's just get right down to the business.
But I think their smartness is in their reproductive capability.
Absolutely.
So that's why, they just make bunches of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We're not too bright.
If you can't figure it out, just make more.
Yeah.
And maybe one of them will get it.
Yeah.
But
I like to do everything, so that's why the show is kind of
Yeah.
expanded
Yeah.
its
Well,
horizons.
I think that, like your perspective, like you're born and raised Texas. You're the most Texas guy I know. But you're an outdoorsman. And there's a lot of people in your shoes. There's a lot of hunters there that they're probably looking to do those same things that you are doing. Like, oh, I want to go on an elk hunt. But how do I do that? And I think having somebody that's like, it's different when you listen to somebody from Colorado talk about elk hunting. Right, because they just have a different access, different capabilities to scout. When you're talking about it, it's like that guy's like, "Yep, I'm in your shoes." Like I want to listen to how you did it.
Get yourself some Onyx and start planning your hunt. Like because I don't have a week to go to New Mexico and scout.
Right,
It's all done virtually and like on the fly when I'm there.
mm-hmm.
We've got 3 kids. What do you? My wife, I'm going to leave for 3 weeks to go elk hunting. She's like, see if I'm still here when you get back. So.
Yeah. Will I get an elk?
Right.
Will I still be married?
That's probably the most relatable thing I've heard on this podcast in a long time.
Exactly. Tune in
But,
3
yeah.
weeks.
Damn it, I want to go elk hunting every year. So,
Yep.
and I'm going. I think I haven't missed a season in 8 years. So,
Yeah.
Gosh,
I love it.
good for you, man.
Yeah.
You shot a couple bulls with your bow.
Got 2 bulls on public land, 2 5x5s, New Mexico, on the same day in the same basin, 3 years apart. So
That's awesome.
yeah, and I drew a tag in New Mexico this year, so I'm pumped about that.
Killer.
Heck yeah.
Well, speaking of Onyx, you can share that pin with me a little bit later. We'll do that off air. So let's dive into the deer hunting aspect here. Let's talk about, so what was that first deer hunt? What was your first Texas deer hunt?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, like I said, I didn't know what I was doing, but the guy set me up in a tripod blind. It just had a little mesh netting around it, and I think I borrowed a friend's 30-06, and this buck walked by, and I shot and missed him. And so he ran into the timber. And I was like, I'm used to bird hunting. I'm like, this sucks. Where are the deer? So I was like, I'm going to go get him. So I go into the woods. The deer runs out of the woods. I drop to a knee, and I shot him
No way.
in the guts. Yeah.
Oh, bummer.
Well, he ran and bedded down. And then, again, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm making myself sound like a terrible hunter here. But this is the evolution
No, but it just
as an outdoorsman,
you're
right?
not alone.
Yeah. So I immediately go bump him. And he gets up and runs off. And then we spent the next 5 hours looking for him, where he would have just gone and died right there.
Right.
I mean, I watched him go lay down, but I didn't know what I was doing. So bumped him, and we eventually found him, and it was all smiles after that. And then it was like, now gut him. So get the insides on the outside.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's like you're like, oh yeah, I'm making myself sound like a terrible hunter. Those are things like obviously if you can avoid.
Oh, and I shot a deer that was running too. Like a lot of people still think that, I think it's a lost art, but a lot of people are like, why would you shoot at a running animal? Well, what did people that needed food do? They shot at running animals. So
Yep.
I think
that happened.
I think there's just certain things you're either good at something or confident with something, and
would I do it again? Probably not. But at the time, it was just like living in the moment. There's the deer. Here's my gun. Boom.
Let's do it.
Here's what I'm out here to do, and
Right.
that's part of that learning process that we were talking about earlier. Like a lot of it does come down to just going and learning those lessons. Some of which you're going to learn the hard way. Some things they'll work out famously. Other things you'll do different next time, right?
I think really what a terrible hunter is. A terrible hunter doesn't mean you did something wrong. It means that you did something wrong and you didn't learn from it.
Right.
That's actually like, I quote terrible hunter.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you still do things wrong, you don't even know it, and then you didn't learn from it. I mean, that just happens too. But if you just blatantly, well, I'll do that again. then that might be an indication.
Right. That worked terrible. Yeah. I'll probably try that again.
From there, I went to leasing my own property the next year and started like learning how to age deer and, what does a 3.5-year-old look like on the hoof compared to a 5.5-year-old. And to say that I've like immersed myself in deer culture from 12, 13 years ago to today would be an understatement. Like I'm obsessive about it. So it's the bug bit me for sure.
That's crazy, man.
What is like the quintessential deer in Texas? Up here, you come into Wisconsin, the whitetail reigns supreme. You go out west, everybody talks about the mule deer, and there's kind of different. What do you got in Texas primarily?
Oh, whitetail. It's whitetail's king.
All right.
Yeah.
Big bass, big bucks. That's what we pride ourselves on. So, yeah, it's whitetail. We do have mule deer in like the west part of the state.
Yeah.
And I have dabbled. I got a mule deer lease one time out there. But no, it's all whitetail.
Yeah.
Right on.
That's what we're crazy about.
I mean, so kind of dovetailing. I mean, Texas is a big state.
Mm-hmm. And
you guys got a lot of ground.
There's like 3 really distinct, I would say, they're not subspecies. They're all white-tailed deer.
Yeah.
But North Texas has big-bodied deer, big racks. The hill country, like around Austin. So like where I live, Dallas area, big deer. And there's 3 counties that are archery only that were closed from the 70s until 2012 or 2013. And then they opened them back up. They were closed completely.
Why?
Dallas,
do you know why?
Rockwall, and Collin County where I live. I think just because so many people.
Okay.
Collin County just didn't have any deer.
Oh.
So, but a lot of the like area lakes have deer like taken up there and expanded their ranges. So they opened those 3 counties up and the huge deer and great age class. So, it's harder to kill them with a bow. So they've got a lot more big bucks. And just the proximity to like the city and stuff. It's just no rifles, I think, has kept the anti-hunters at bay somewhat.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. They're not seeing it and hearing it on a regular basis. So
a little more discreet.
But leases are expensive, man. Like at least 20 acres. Do you want me to tell you a dollar amount of what that costs?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. You said
my wife's not listening.
Yeah, you
so
said
it costs $5,000. I wrote it off for business expense, but 20 acres for $5,000. And then I have a lease like 2 hours northwest of Dallas. That's like $3,000 for 800 acres. So I mean,
oh wow,
oh
yeah. So you can see the contrast there.
Yeah. So
how does the leasing process work? That's something that I'm just
that
not
guy
familiar
put
with
that
at all.
20 acres on Facebook, and he had 20 phone calls that morning.
Oh my gosh!
And he had actually heard my radio show, and he's like, "I know you'll be respectful of the property," and it's like, "If you want it, it's yours." He's like, "Do you want to come look at it?" I was like, "No, I know the creek that runs through your property, what lake it comes off of. I don't need to see it. I'll send you a deposit." And so that it's cutthroat deal. Like
demand is exceeding supply.
Yes. So
what? So then, most certainly, you killed a big deer on that.
I did not kill a big deer. I watched a 175 run around all season long, and he was on the property on Halloween. I was on the property on Halloween. I was there in the morning, and I was taking my kids trick or treating that night. Here he comes by my pop-up blind. So,
no way.
Yeah. And then it deal with like.
You made the right call, by the way. I never Halloween is like one of my most favorite days to hunt deer, and since I had kids, I have not hunted a Halloween evening since.
I'm trick or treating, and I got a live picture from my trail camera of him sitting in front of my pop-up blind. Yeah.
Mom, where's Dad? He had to go.
He had to go make himself another drink after that. Yeah. But no, I never killed that deer. He hung around mostly pre-rut. I got a couple pictures of him in November, but the neighbors' dogs, they had 3 labs that just like, I had eventually just called animal control. I was like, hey, I tried to explain it to him. Hey, I'm paying a lot of money to hunt here. I understand this is kind of rural, just on the fringe of the city. You probably don't feel like you have to keep your dogs pinned up, but you do. So animal control, finally after the 3rd time it happened, they came and they sorted it out. I don't know. I think they got the message, but
yeah.
And then one time I'm sitting in a tree stand and a hot air balloon 100 yards from me fires up. I didn't know what it was at first. I just hear this noise.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, just like, and I'm like, what in the hell are they doing? Building something over there? No, here comes this hot air balloon. I videoed it, put it on Instagram. This guy sent me a message. He was like, "That was me." He was like, "Hey, it looked like a nice Saturday you were having."
Yeah,
So.
you just shout up. Did you see any big bucks from up there?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you
I
could maybe work together.
didn't end up leasing that place again. Just like the headache, it wasn't the juice wasn't worth the squeeze on that one.
Yeah, that's tricky. Particularly, 170 buck is running around in the area.
Yeah. But it was fun. I learned a lot, you can bait in Texas. That buck would not come to a feeder, only if it was something that I put out with my hands, like hand corning. He would eat that. But I learned real quick, like he skirted. I have pictures of him making a huge loop around the feeder. Does, young bucks would be there, not him. And I don't think that's a unique situation. A lot of big deer, a place I leased in Oklahoma. And that was a big place. It was almost 1,000 acres. And I shot a 142 with my bow there. Mm-hmm. That buck would not come to a feeder. So I to keep the horses out, I made a barbed wire pin and just started hand cornering in there. And I ended up shooting over that bait.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's something that I think is not 100% unique. Like you're talking about Oklahoma there, so it's not like 100% unique to Texas. But like baiting is part of the, you got feeders. That's part of the deer hunting culture there. Corning roads or senderos, as you guys, have you ever corned a road?
Every time in South Texas.
That
with the feeders on the buggy, and you just turn it on, drive down the sendero about 30 minutes before sunlight, and wait for the sun to come up and the deer to come out.
Yep.
But here's the thing. That habitat is way different than the hardwoods that I'm hunting in North Texas. It is thick mesquite country. You're never going to see a deer unless it's in the open.
Right.
Yeah.
And the way to get the deer into the open is by corning.
Right.
So it's that's why we do it. And I think people also need to understand, like, from a management standpoint, baiting is a great way to catalog what deer you're looking at regularly. Hey, this deer's 4.5. Let's try to get him to 5.5, 6.5. If you have that luxury, big place or whatever. So I was telling you this place I hunted in South Texas. You remember that TV show, The Bucks of Tecumate?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This is that property, new owners. Their son followed me on Instagram. He was like, "Hey, I want you to come see what we're doing with these whitetail. This is a low fence place."
Right.
I said, "Okay." And he's like, "You could shoot a deer." I was like, "Cool." He's like, "It'll be the biggest deer you've shot." I was like, "Awesome."
That's a pretty bold statement.
is.
Like,
That
hey,
is.
why
Well,
don't
he
you?
asked, "What was the biggest buck you've shot?" And I was like, "Well, 142." So he was like, "Well, we'll get you one bigger than that." And he was very confident. I was like, "Just tell me when to come." So go down there, and dude, I probably saw 3, 4, 170 to 190 inch deer every sit.
Unbelievable.
Free range. And they don't shoot anything until they're 7.5 years old. That's their management plan, unless it's a cull. Like my buck ended up going like 157, and he was 7.5 years old. And they knew he was 7.5 years old because they had pictures of him every year from 3.5 when they enter the bucks into their camera survey until he was 7.5, and I shot him.
That is just intense, very methodical and thorough,
Yeah.
like monitoring of a deer herd.
Yeah. The dad who owns the property, whether it's his, like I'm a guest, or if it's his son's friends, he gives everyone a video camera for every sit. And we come back to the lodge and we go through everyone's footage on the big screen TV and talk about the deer and like, oh, that's such a cool looking buck. We're gonna let him go until he's 8.5. And they shot a 175 that was 9.5 years old this year.
Wow.
It's so like different from anything. I guess I was gonna say I've never hunted Texas. I hunted Aoudad in Texas, which was obviously it's different.
The poor man's sheep hunting.
The poor man's
I love
sheep.
it.
Yeah, dude, that's an optics intensive hunt. That's a fun one
for sure.
But that's like the deer hunting side of things is so very different from anything I've ever done. But like what you're describing there sounds so fun at the same time, like getting back and like everybody's watching this or what'd you see? And then, I don't know, like maybe I just love deer hunting, Jim, because on the flip side,
I think that's been
I don't
established.
yeah, when I enter, I'm like deer. Everybody's thinking, maybe not everybody's thinking about deer. I think they should be. But like, I also love what I've predominantly done. Like, I don't even really run trail cameras here at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love seeing new spots and just.
But you're hunting public land a lot here.
Yeah, it's very.
So the mindset of like management isn't probably as. It's not something people are thinking about here as much as
right.
if you have a lease or your own property in Texas. Like the average deer, the age of bucks that get shot in Texas is still 2.5. So
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know
it's
that.
It's not on everyone's mind. But if you have your own property and you have nice deer or a nice lease, then management is something I think we're all like. The place I have where I rifle hunt, where I take my kids, family friendly, we try not to shoot anything less than 4.5. But every year somebody shoots a 3.5-year-old and they apologize on the group text. It's like, sorry. We're like, it's all right. It is what it is. Yeah. So.
Yeah, we live, I think a lot of places are probably similar to Wisconsin. Like, we live in, like, we have a lot of public land here, which is great. We have a lot of private land here, which is great. And then you have, some people will lease properties. A lot of people buy even recreational properties here and manage them, as tightly as they can. We have, I think, by and large, here, like, smaller parcels, like 300 acres would be that's a pretty big chunk.
Big chunk of land around here.
Yeah.
So you kind of, it's almost a smorgasbord of like, number one, obviously it's, do you have the means to get a lease, or do you have the means to own a property, or maybe you have a lot of family properties here that are getting passed down generation, or farmers and things like that. But like I got an opportunity at a lease from a really good buddy of mine who sells like recreational properties and things like that. He's like, hey, this lease came up, and I'm still like kicking myself for not jumping on it, because I probably should have, because I'm pretty confident like I would have been able to go kill a deer or two there, and it wasn't extraordinarily expensive. But then I also, like, if I went to Texas, I'd be like, well, that's what we're doing, because that's just what you do. Like, you don't really have, like, if you want to hunt deer in Texas for you and your family, like, you are getting a lease. Like,
you are getting
that
a
is
lease.
your ticket to deer hunting.
That is, I'd say, the major drawback.
Yeah.
Because Texas is like 98% privately owned. So there's public land, not much though. Like, there's a lake, a WMA, hour and a half from my house. You can bow hunt there.
Yeah.
It's an hour and a half from my house, and it's bow hunting only. It's not something where you could like introduce your kids into hunting.
Does it just get pounded with people too?
It does.
Okay.
And there those places do exist, but it's high foot traffic, and there's not a lot of rifle hunting opportunity for sure. Texas has some drawn hunts and stuff, and I have done those before, drawn a hunt, but yeah, by and large, public land deer hunting in Texas. If you get a buck on public land in Texas, you've done something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like not really. I mean, even just that's an access thing. Like, how do you get like?
It is.
There's just like not a lot of it. So, getting back to this lease that I had a crack at, like, it was super tempting, because I'm like, I guarantee I'd like see deer, have success, not run into people on it, because I'd essentially be the only person there. Tons of confidence, but then because I have the option, like, I've got all these pins dropped all over the state. I'm like, I want to look at all the stuff that I've either looked at once a little bit, or hunted once, or maybe I figured it out. I'm like, if I got the lease, I feel like I would trap myself, and I'd be like, no, dude, I'm committing to this because I've got this place, and I spent the money and not explore.
Yeah. But it's the same thing as getting like a cabin up north, like all the Wisconsinites do. You get a cabin up north, and it's like, let's go on vacation. Where should we go? Florida? Well, we got a cabin, so we should probably go there.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you spend all this money on this lease. The beautiful thing was it was 10 minutes from my door. I could be on the property,
Yeah, that is nice.
That is nice.
That was, and I hunted more days with less success on that 20 acres than I'd ever deer hunted in my life. So it was, I'm not going to say it was humbling. At the end of the day, there was just too many obstacles. You get a picture of that buck, and then 1 minute later, here's 3 labs standing in the same spot. Chase them off.
That's frustrating.
Yeah, but it was what it was. I don't regret it. I certainly enjoyed messing with that buck.
Yeah,
a lot. So
unique experience. Yeah, I think on this lease that I'd basically turned. I think my odds were actually probably a lot higher. That's the other thing that doesn't make sense. Like, I think my odds of killing a couple deer on that place are probably actually higher than what I'll end up doing this year.
Where do you hunt mostly?
Usually I just tag along with Mark somewhere, or I've gone on some public land spots and a little bit of private land that are just through friends and stuff like that. But I haven't ever had to do the lease process or anything like that. So that's why I asked. But
yeah, I mean, you got a little piece here in Wisconsin. You shot a deer out there this last year. We hunted Nebraska together on some public out there. That's this buck here that we always just have front and center. But yeah, it's interesting. There's definitely,
I don't hunt nearly as much as Mark. I'll throw that out there. No, I just like I'll do a couple of bigger ones, every year or something like that. But
then you go back to turning wrenches. You're like, I don't know.
That's the problem, though. Is like you're talking about the piece that my wife and I have. Yeah, I could hunt out there, but then there's also a garage out there. And so every time I pull down the driveway and I'm in all my hunting gear and I grab my gun, I look and I see the garage and I'm like, do I want to sit and maybe not see a deer, or do I want to go in there and definitely take something apart? And 80% of the time, every time
you should have put like glass walls on the garage, so that way you could do like double duty. Like when you pick your head up from underneath the vehicle, you're like, oh, there's one.
Yeah, that actually would have been a good idea.
You mentioned Nebraska. I did hunt there last year, muzzleloader season.
Oh, cool.
In the Sandhills.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. It's like a place that habitat and terrain that I'd never seen before. And you could have
it's fantastic.
Mule deer or whitetail.
Yeah.
Tag's good for both.
Yeah, a mix of stuff out there. And yeah, a very unique region. If you've only driven through Nebraska on I-80, like, you wouldn't know that exists, but it's a neat area out there.
You kept telling me before we went, you're like, Nebraska has hills, and I said, BS.
Yeah.
That's not true, but it is.
And I flew into South Dakota, and so I got to drive through the Badlands on my way there, which was
sweet,
something
man.
cool. I got to check off the bucket list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. How'd you do?
No.
That can be a tough hunt in there.
It was one of the coldest hunts I've ever done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I'm gonna go back and do it again.
Yeah.
I find some of those hunts that are like good hunts in cool places where you didn't get one are like some of the ones that you want to go back to.
Yeah. It's like
you're like,
I take it personal,
So speaking of cool places, and getting back to our Texas thing here.
Yes.
Somebody from out of state wants to go hunt deer in Texas. Being that there's not a lot of public land, if they're just going to breeze in for one-time hunt, see what's up, see what it's like, they're probably going to have to, they wouldn't buy a lease, but they would.
Yeah, I mean, just you'd have to get an outfitted hunt.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be worth coming to Texas unless you were going to go with an outfitter. Like, what are you going to go to that WMA and sit in a tree stand that you don't know anything about? No, you're going to do that.
Yeah.
So, and that brings up high fences. And I see a lot of guys who are very successful in their business careers. They don't have time to hunt all the time. They'll come in and they'll shoot a nice buck in a high fence. And that's that. And I don't knock those people. I've done it. I told you. Yeah. I've got a 221-inch deer in my studio. And it's the first thing people look at when they come in, and it's like the one that I'm the least proud of. Like, I don't even care. I almost wish I didn't have it mounted. But the guy invited me to come to his ranch, and he's like, I want you to shoot a nice buck. It's okay. It's not really my cup of tea.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not knocking it. You don't have a lot of time. You have a lot of money. Here's the place where you can go do it. You know what? Those people buy hunting license. They buy ammo. They're, I think, going to vote a lot of the same way we do. And I'm cool with it. I don't know. It's a big can of worms, but I'm not saying I would never do it again. If you invited me to come to your property and we're going to go hang out and have a few cold drinks in the evening, you want me to come shoot a nice buck? Okay, but I'm just telling you, like, when it comes time to mount it, I might not even mount it this time.
Right.
Let me tell you about the little 3x3 mule deer that I shot in New Mexico with my muzzleloader, 12,000 feet. That's a trophy.
Yep. Yeah. I think it just boils down to what is hunting to you?
Yeah.
Is it legal? Okay, maybe that's number one.
Yeah.
And like you said, everybody has a different cup of tea. right? And if you find something enjoyable or fulfilling, go do it. And that's another option, right? In an area where sometimes your options can be limited. Is it for me? Probably not.
Yeah.
But I could care less that it is for somebody else.
Well, let me also put this caveat out there. So you are a landowner. You've got 1,000 acres, let's say. Your buddy next door keeps shooting every 3.5-year-old deer he sees. A lot of guys I know, that's why the high fence went up. And they're not outfitters. Mm-hmm. So those guys, and I have no problem. And I would shoot a deer in their place because those deer, wild-ass deer, they don't even know the fence is there. You're talking about 1,000 acres. Those deer, they don't know.
Yeah.
And that fence didn't go up so that he could bring in genetics. He just wants Jim Bob next door to stop smoking, stop having the if it's brown, it's down mantra and living by that code.
Can't stand that.
That's a lot of why high fences go up.
I can see that.
Apparently, I'd be a poor neighbor.
And then once you got the high fence, you get a lot of them. That's when the exotics come in, which is fun and certainly enjoyable to see a lot of different animals. That axis deer are a big ticket item in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We lost a lot of axis deer and black buck when we had that storm this past year.
So, the snow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, black buck. Both of those species are from India. Nilgai as well. They did not do well with that.
No, I can't imagine
they seemed a little sensitive. I heard two stories. I heard with that storm, it was just complete decimation. And then I also heard it got blown out of proportion. Like you're seeing some very horrible snapshots of it, but it was actually not as bad as that.
We didn't have power for 3 days.
Yeah.
I went to the street and turned my water off because 4 houses on my street had busted pipes and their houses were flooded. So, it was bad. We're not used to that in Texas.
Yeah.
That was so extreme. It might snow once or twice a year, and it doesn't stick for more than a night. That was the most snow for the longest period of time that I've ever seen in Texas. It was great. We went and stayed with my sister-in-law, and the kids went sledding every day. And then we had no electricity, no water, and I said, "Bye, wife. I'm going to Africa now." And I went and shot a Cape buffalo.
Yeah, I think that's probably what most people did.
Yeah.
What about those exotics though? Were they just meleeed or
those species, particularly the ones from India,
did
the poorest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also probably the most. The black buck and axis deer are certainly probably the most common in high fences and in the hill country, just running around free range. It's nothing to be driving through Fredericksburg, Texas, and just see a herd of axis deer on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I fished. This was a number of years ago. I fished out of Port Mansfield. We're fishing redfish and speckled trout, and it was super fun. But where we're staying at was kind of this little complex of cabins, if I recall correctly. And there was just a feeder, kind of like a neighborhood feeder.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh yeah, there's this nilgai that's been coming to the feeder really consistently." And I was like,
"Yeah,
man, I don't know if I want to go fishing today. I think I might just kind of hang out here." But I ended up fishing because that's what we were there to do. But always remember that. And that was like a free range. It had gotten out from somewhere.
They introduced them on the King Ranch in 1930s.
And I think that's in fairly close proximity to that area, right?
Yeah. Well, and the King Ranch is hundreds of thousands of acres, so it's massive.
Yeah.
It covers a huge stretch of that coastal area. But yeah, those nilgai.
Big enough ranch that you can get a pickup named after you.
Yeah.
That's significant.
Yeah. But I've hunted down there for nilgai. It's fun.
Yeah.
Delicious meat.
I've heard it's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Are people still importing exotics, or are all the exotics that are they there from back in who knows when, or something like that?
Yeah. People still buy and trade exotics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They, once you do put up a high fence, then it's do you want your genetic pool to get stale, right? So at some point you do have to introduce genetics. Not so much on the whitetail side, but a lot of people do it on the exotics. Well, deer breeding is still a big thing too.
Yeah.
In Texas, selling semen, stuff like that. It's probably over my head. I don't really get into that much, but it's still big business. A lot of it's been impacted by CWD.
Okay.
Texas Parks and Wildlife, if you have a CWD positive test, when they first start out, they just come in and just smoke all your deer, shoot them in the head with a
Wow.
rifle, with a sniper on the back of a truck, kill your whole deer herd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
So they
seems
don't-
like could be.
I ain't messing around.
No.
Affect your pocketbook.
And then they'll go look at any other place where your semen went to, or if you sold a live deer to a bred doe or something. Well, now we've got a problem there. So they're not messing around with CWD. I know you guys have CWD up here. It's probably a lot more prevalent here than it is in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, probably because we don't have people running around sniping everything that looks
Anymore.
like it's got anymore.
Well, I mean, that was.
Did we have trucks with
Well,
snipers going
I
around?
mean, not
where,
that.
Where
but
do I sign up?
We had.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
Sorry about your deer herd.
Kind of like I think what they call them, like herd eradication tags or something like that. There was a number of years where it was, for a stint there, like they're pretty aggressive with the deer herd management, and that's where I think a lot. Don't quote me, but we had to earn a buck for to kind of thin that out, so it's kind of to make it mandatory to shoot a doe before you could shoot a buck, things like that. But yeah, we do have a fair amount of CWD here, and a lot of good research going on with game and fish, and our biologists here trying to sort that out.
Sadly, it's not that uncommon to see. Like I don't know about you, but when I'm driving around, I'm not saying it happens like weekly, but I'm not surprised when I'm driving around, a deer is sort of like meandering in the road and they don't really get out of the way fast enough, and you look at it and they got patches of their hair missing, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
don't touch any other ones.
Yeah.
Don't
Well, we
don't
don't really
touch your
have
friends.
it that bad in Texas. Surprisingly, we have whole areas that have been wiped out by anthrax.
What?
What? Anthrax?
Anthrax, yeah. So anthrax stays in the soil, and when conditions are right, it comes to the surface. The deer, somehow get that into their nose. They ingest it, and it spreads like wildfire. But you can't get rid of it because it stays in the soil. So it's just like every 10, 20 years, a certain place will just buy entire deer herd just wiped out.
What even is anthrax?
I didn't want to ask.
How did it get there in the first place? Is it just a natural thing that's in the soil, or
just a natural
some sort of secret military testing,
No,
alien
no.
spacecrafts?
It's just something that occurs. Like it happens a lot more in West Texas.
Does it?
So whatever the conditions are there seem to be a hotbed for anthrax outbreaks.
Well, I mean, that's not. From what I hear, that's not really great for people either.
Yeah.
I mean, that's interesting. Like, I'm going to go play in the yard. I'm dead.
Yeah, anthrax. Yeah, wait, wasn't that the thing? Was it anthrax
Yeah,
that
with
people
the
were like
mail.
mailing?
We're
Yeah,
not-
Yeah.
they were putting it. Yeah,
It was in the news. And
Maybe they went to West Texas and scooped up some soil. I don't know how they.
seriously.
I don't know.
Golly, don't drink
I'm
the
gonna look.
water.
I'm gonna look a little bit more into that.
What?
So-
What was I going to ask? Sticking with the lease
Mhm.
thing and
Okay,
stuff like that.
good.
I was wondering, for an outsider, like us, we want to go down and hunt Texas. Let's say we wanted to go down and we wanted to, not necessarily do like the high fence thing.
You're gonna
get
want
a little bit
you're
more
gonna want to hunt
adventure.
South Texas.
South
Texas.
Is that where you get a little bit more like adventure or something, or what is it like?
Like if you're coming all the way to Texas, you're going to say, "Where is my best chance to kill a big buck or have a nice experience?" If you're going to
Okay.
pay for a hunt, right?
Yeah.
So South Texas is you're going to see the most deer and have the opportunity for the biggest deer.
Is that, and would you just
the
be
South Texas brush country?
brush country? So that's not the Sendero.
No,
stuff.
that's
Oh,
where
that
they
is.
cut
Okay.
senderos and
Okay,
corn
got it.
them, and yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And a lot of people feed protein, and cottonseed has a lot of protein. That's very popular. I have an interesting take for you guys. So I've muzzleloader hunted in Illinois a couple times in Pike County.
Mm-hmm.
They manipulate the crops there. Like they have new hunters coming in. This is an outfitted hunt. They buy X number of bushels from the farmer that the farmer doesn't harvest. They leave it standing. New hunters come in. They come in and mow the crops. I'm sitting in a box blind overlooking a cornfield. I could shoot any deer that is now in my manipulated cornfield. It's no different than a feeder. It's just a big-ass feeder. What do you
Fair
think?
point.
What do you think about that? I don't see any difference, personally. Like, here's my deer feeder. Anything that comes within 100, 200 yards, I can smoke him. Here's my cornfield. Anything that's in it, I can smoke him, which you just pulled a tractor in there and mowed down 10 rows.
It's completely different, Cable, because on one side you have a maintained man-made path with corn in it, and then on the other side you have a man-made path with corn in it.
Right.
I like your
No,
take.
I get the difference. I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But I just find it
See, when you
humorous.
put it when you get it in its proper context.
Glad we sorted that out.
Yeah. But, I just hear the Western guys, it's different because they don't hunt over bait, and fine. If I'm going to play in their woods, I'm doing the same thing. And I love it. Elk hunting is my favorite thing to do with a bow. But like when the Midwest people like frown on, well, you guys aren't frowning on it.
No.
But Illinois, Iowa, places where they do that with the crops, I'm just like, wow, what's the difference, really?
Yeah, I mean, how many times do we hunt around here and we're like, all right, let's find the egg.
Oh yeah, exactly. When I'm
Let's find the 100-acre bait pile.
Right.
even when I'm pounding the public, yeah, exactly. Many part of my hunt strategy, where the corn at.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where the corn at? The yellow gold.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I've seen on different shows and things like that. You're talking about even just North Texas versus South Texas. Outside of those paths, like it seems nearly unnavigable through like that crazy like low thorny brush. Have you ever had to get into that
The
stuff?
first buck I ever shot with a bow went into that stuff, and me and my buddy spent 3 to 4 hours on our hands and knees tracking this deer. We eventually found him.
Yeah.
I mean, he went a long way and had to put another arrow in him, but I mean, this was, like I said, the first buck I ever shot with a bow. So, again, kind of like the rifle thing. Not that great of a bow hunter.
Right.
But you learn from those experiences.
Well, you
Ended
can-
up harvesting the deer, but that was not a fun tracking job at all.
I mean, were you torn to shreds
Yeah.
afterwards?
Oh, everything can cut you, bite you, scratch you, rattlesnakes. I mean, it's freaking December, and you're still worried about rattlesnakes in South Texas.
Yeah.
So if you don't have
Rattlebugs.
snake boots, don't come.
Rattlebugs.
Rattlebugs. Yep, that's our slang term for them.
Rattlebugs.
Yep.
Bugs have legs. I don't know, man. I'm not really scared of snakes. I'm not. I mean,
But you
I
don't
respect
hunt in
them.
a lot of places where there's snakes around a lot.
no, not a lot. Not
Like
a
you
lot.
see a snake and you're kind of like, nah,
And like you're, boom.
just shoot him. Yeah.
I've seen, but I feel like some people are like,
Some
like
people get
every snake
wound up
does
about
not get
killing
a pass.
snakes.
Some people are.
Oh,
People
why
are,
would you kill a non-venomous snake? And if I see like a rattlesnake out in the woods, I'm not going to kill it every time. But if it's by camp and my kids are around, I'm probably going to kill it.
Yeah, I think that's you got some different set of circumstances
And
there.
for me, it's just I don't know anything about snakes.
Oh, there's so
So,
many
like,
cool
the-
snakes like that eat rattlesnakes too.
Yeah, that's
What
pretty
snake eats a
freaking
rattlesnake?
I can't remember if it's the blue indigo.
Ooh.
But I have seen those in South Texas. In the
So
same.
then, should a human be more afraid of that snake than a rattlesnake, or should they
No,
be like
you should try to
friends, like
catch
the
that
enemy
snake
of my
and play
enemy
with
is my? All right. Oh, I don't know about.
Well, I mean, I'll go with not being afraid.
Yeah, but no, I mean, a lot of people just don't know anything about snakes, like me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I see a milk snake, and I'm kind of like, it's slithery. I'm not used to seeing it. I don't know what it does.
Yeah.
You know, and like that one garter snake that one time lunged at me. It was a big garter snake. Lunged at me with its mouth open. I don't know what that means. It's just poison or posturing, but
Seemed aggressive.
Spring turkey is the time that I'm the most worried about snakes because you're sitting on the ground
yeah.
and you're sitting under a tree where there's leaves and stuff. It's just like that's.
You ever
when
have
that-
one just come down and tap you on
No,
the
no,
shoulder?
no, thank God.
Yeah.
No. I had a buddy that got bit by one.
Rattlesnake?
Yeah, little one. Put him in the hospital for a week.
No kidding.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was a bad deal.
Where'd he get bit?
On his foot.
No kidding, huh?
Mm-hmm. He did not have on snake boots.
Was he?
He walked outside of his porch to watch a electrical storm, and it had come up on his porch to get warm, and he basically he had flip flops on, and it tagged him.
Bam. Not when you're expecting to get bit by a snake.
No, you're out watching lightning.
Yeah.
Snap.
Yep.
We had spiders on there too on your list.
Yeah, when I was hunting Aoudad, we stayed in this it's kind of like a tin shed, like an outbuilding. Had some cots in it and a little wood stove. And I've only seen probably a handful of black widows in my life, but this one was a large. Like if you're if you're watching on YouTube, the body of it was about the size of like this microphone that's next to my mouth. Thinking it's not a black widow.
Those
But
give me the willies.
it was Huge.
Yeah.
At least to me, it was huge, and it did not get a free pass.
No.
You kill it.
Yeah.
I found them in my deer blinds before. It's always an unpleasant surprise.
I don't. How aggressive is a black widow? I didn't really ask. I just kind of.
Do they seek you out, or are they just sort of like defensive?
Off instinct.
We have brown recluses too. Those have been in our our house.
Mark knows a lot about
really?
those.
Yeah.
Really good brown recluse identifier. Maybe MC Ryan, if you're watching on YouTube, can roll that clip real fast. We'll just
I
splice it in.
don't even know what clip you're talking about.
You do.
Oh,
The one where you scared Eric and I into thinking a Subaru was going to drop
we
on
still
our
don't know if
faces.
it may have been one.
Yeah.
I could have saved your life. It crawled underneath Eric. It was underneath him.
Yeah, and then oddly enough,
was huge.
You made Eric strip down to his boxers. And myself.
I was concerned about your safety.
That's right.
All right, so in the garage now. Very sudden escape from underneath the car. We're down into our skivvies. Mark spotted a gigantic spider, and he said it looked like a brown recluse, and we're not going to screw with those.
Here's what I'll say. I mean,
It was huge.
full disclosure, I think every spider's a brown recluse. This guy looked super conspicuous.
Aw,
He was
Mark.
large, he was fast, mostly
Well,
large.
geez, now you got Eric and I in our undies here.
Well, either way, I don't think you need a spider that can go Mach 4 that's the size of a
He
quarter.
was quick. I saw
on
him
your
up
butt.
by you.
No, somebody got him, dude. Is that him? I think we may have accidentally got him.
Don't you think we would have smushed him?
Well, hold on. Let's see how fresh he is.
Here.
Oh,
Hey, Ryan.
is that new or old?
I don't know.
Seems pretty new to me. Oh yeah, there's goo coming out. That's him. We got him. We got him, everybody.
This was your big spider? This was
Dude,
your brown?
that's like half of him. That's
Is-
that's after like a.
Is this a brown recluse?
Jim, I don't know.
I don't know, but I'm almost naked.
That's like
So am I.
you guys have fallen for my.
Oh, hey Ryan. Ryan comes in and we're just having a no pants party here.
I've got you guys right where I want you.
All right. Well,
What do you guys use blinds up here? That's something we haven't talked about.
A lot of folks will.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll use just pop-up blinds.
Okay.
Kind of like those, those hay bale style blinds. If you've got, for those, it's like, okay, I've got a property that I either own or can hunt every year.
I mean, it's a common thing, too, to be driving by. Like, a lot of farmers will make side biz on building blinds and then shipping them to people and stuff like that. People
Okay.
buy them from farmers, elevated ones. And,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's not uncommon at all to see out at the edge of a big field.
I mean, that's big business in Texas, regardless of if you're in South Texas or, where my lease is. Like, here's a corn feeder. Anywhere from 100 to 200 yards, there's a big box blind.
Yeah.
And I love it because my kids can come sit with me, introduce them to hunting. That way, my son shot his first doe out of a blind last Thanksgiving. And I think it's a phenomenal way to get kids. Because kids, they want to be comfortable.
Right.
And you want them to be quiet.
Yep.
And it's the best way to to achieve both of those things.
That is.
Oh, for sure. Controlled, quiet, comfortable. If you can fidget, if you're a fidgeter, well, oftentimes kids are. You can
They
move
are.
around. You're going to be less,
My son's got his binos. He's like, never still.
and that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome that he's into it.
Yeah.
He's not like, let me, play with my iPad until Dad tells me a deer shows up.
Right.
He's like
Yeah.
obviously actively involved in the hunt, which is super cool. I'm sure your scent goes down. You're not having, to worry less about the wind.
Yeah. Rifle hunting is probably infinitely more popular in Texas than bow hunting. And we have a lot of bow hunters. There's just a lot of hunters. But, it's, the first weekend of November, it's there's gunshots going off everywhere.
Yeah.
So let's talk about timing, right? So when I think of whitetail hunting, I think you said first week in November.
That's rifle season, yep.
Okay, and when I think rut, I think first week in November. What about your rifle season in general starts first week in November and goes till
Typically the middle part of January.
middle part of January.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, that's a long gun season.
That's
Yeah.
generous.
We shoot a lot of deer.
Yeah.
A lot. I think your tag comes with your license comes with 2 buck tags and 5 doe tags, something like that.
I know
or
when
three. I don't know. You shoot 5. I should know this. My license is in my wallet, but we can shoot a lot of deer in Texas.
I'll say this: Texas.
I never tag out. It's too many deer. Like
Yeah.
So.
It's a lot.
You guys are very generous
Oh yeah.
with your tags too, even to out-of-staters. I remember when I did that aoudad hunt, and I've ended. I think if I recall correctly, I had deer tags, turkey tags, odd tags.
Oh, yeah.
Like it was like I was ready to rock.
We don't price gouge people. We like them to come hunt in Texas. you
Yeah.
know? But dude, so when I had that place in Oklahoma, it was a sweet deal. You want to hunt bow season? $600. You want to hunt a 10-day muzzleloader season? Okay, we'll give you a deal, $600. You want a rifle hunt? It gets even better, $600. So $1,800 if you want to hunt all the seasons for an out-of-stater.
And could you have shot a buck in each one of those seasons? Could you have killed 3 deer?
No,
just one.
I think I could kill 2.
Uh-huh.
But our lease was just the landowner, just like $1
Oh,
per person.
gotcha.
So,
Okay, I see what you're saying.
But
now. Okay.
I was like, $1,800 on top of the lease price. I was like, you don't want people to come to your state and hunt. You know, it seems absurd.
Yeah.
For deer hunting, I don't mind paying $800 for an elk tag,
Right.
Yeah.
but
Everything's so, I always say it's so contextual, you know, and just it's kind of what you've gotten used to. Like, you know, it's like the going rate for an elk tag is about $800. So I guess, yeah, $800. If I want to hunt elk, I better not mind paying. I still mind a little bit though, man. That stings. Every time you buy an elk tag, man, that stings a little bit.
yeah. Our bow season starts October 1st.
Okay.
Or I think it's the first weekend in October.
Is it
whatever's
still
closest
hot? Then is that still hot?
Sometimes people don't even go.
Yeah.
Like they wait for the exact right condition. Like
Yeah.
they didn't go the first 2 weeks, and now the wind is right, and the temperature's dropped, and I'm sitting my ass in that tree stand.
Yep.
So
And then that's a long, and you can shoot bucks from November through that January time frame.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
And some people have, like Texas Parks and Wildlife will work with landowners, high fence or low fence. If you have them come out and do a survey, and they will give you what's called an MLD permit, and then you are now logging all the deer that you're shooting, but you're also allowed to rifle hunt opening weekend of bow season, all the way through January.
Oh dear.
Yeah,
Oh dear.
it's pretty insane.
I'd get involved in that program. What about your rut?
Probably like November 15th through Thanksgiving.
Oh, that's about the same as
Yeah,
here.
it's almost.
I always
spot
hear
on.
December.
South Texas is December.
Okay.
My rut, where I live, Collin County, North Texas, it's middle November through the end of November.
Okay.
South Texas, where I shot that buck last year, and I have hunted quite a bit down there, it's like Christmas. You know, probably mid-December through New Year's is peak of the rut.
Yeah, and I think that's, just like as the more southerly you get, the later that gets pushed back. Like when you and I coos deer hunted in Arizona,
January.
That was January, and those deer were pretty into it.
Do you find that the biggest change you see in terms of just like how things work with hunting deer in Texas happens when you go from like far north to far south, or vice versa, or is it east to west?
Far north to far south.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Certainly. I mean, South Texas is like its own world in that
Right.
bush country.
Right.
And oh my God, property down there is very, very expensive.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, my buddy's dad leased 4,000 acres, and it was $40,000 for 4,000 acres in Webb County, Texas, which is like part of the Golden Triangle of Texas brush country deer hunting.
Okay, gotcha.
So, and that was all oil field land that was broken up into other similar leases. So you can imagine the mint that they were making off of deer hunting.
I tell you what, people talk about that Texas oil money, talk about that Texas deer lease money. That's more like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just need to go be.
If only it were still like the Wild West, where we could just go and put a flag down and claim some land right now.
Be awesome.
So
Great.
well,
I'd have a lot of land.
Yeah.
I mean, and is that what happened? I mean, it seems like a lot of Texas. You got oil, you've got cattle. I mean, like there's some, like you look at a lot of where the public land is out west. It's not really super conducive to farming. It's not really super conducive to maybe like raising cattle. So it got kind of left alone in a way. Like you did have these big chunks that people are like, yeah, I can't, monetize it maybe. Is that what happened? Like Texas was just so monetizable. People were like, yeah, I'll take it. Let's do
cattle,
stuff.
Yeah. Just ranching is how all of those huge tracts of land originally came together. And, most of them have been broken up over the years. Someone dies, kids get in disagreements, and it gets sold or broken up from 3,000 acres to 1,500 to 500 to now the last guy is like holding on to his family property at 300 acres, But that's, cattle is the main driving force on a lot of those land claims.
Are a lot of these bigger tracts of land or even smaller tracts of land, or people are still doing cattle on them, but they're also doing the deer thing on them as well?
And you get a nice exemption if you put cattle like on your taxes. You get an ag exemption. So, it's there's incentives to definitely to put livestock on your property.
Yeah, you get a nice exemption if you got corn on your property and stuff here. Somebody farms it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, zone it ag. Taxes are almost non-existent.
Yeah, we're fortunate on my rifle lease that I have now. It's about 800 acres, and probably 250 of it are wheat fields. And so, certain times of the year, the deer and the hogs. Oh my God, they can't. It's like crack for them. Like midday, drive around. Oh, there's hogs. Boom. Just shoot them right out of the 4x4.
They just can't resist.
They're nonstop, and it's like a blessing and a curse, right?
Right.
They run deer off the feeders.
I was going to ask, do hogs play games with the deer at all?
The game is get out of my space, deer.
Yeah.
So they don't. The deer do not want to be around the hogs. But you get the occasional picture of both of them at the feeder, and then the next one's just the hogs. The deer's giving up. Yeah.
With the exotics, do you see those? Is that a South Texas only thing?
Hill country mostly, and out west probably where you're odd hunting.
Yeah.
The Davis Mountains have aoudad. They have mule deer out there. That's like its own. That's like that's the fourth part of Texas. That's like so remote that for me to drive from Dallas to El Paso is like 14 hours.
Yeah.
To drive across the state.
That's so crazy.
Well, we were in Houston. It was Harris County. We were talking to the sheriff. He's like, yeah, if I get a call on one side of the county, it's 4 hours till I'm on the next side of the county.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But no, the exotics they pretty much originated in the hill country. The Shriners bought, and this is the historic Wyo Ranch originally.
Yeah.
They bought some black buck from a San Diego zoo in like the 40s. I think the cattle industry went into the crapper. It's like, hey, how do we supplement our income? We'll start bringing in exotic species. And so that originated in the hill country, and they've done well there. And it kind of, you won't see exotics outside of a high fence where I live.
Okay.
There's none.
Yeah.
So it's not a thing in North Texas. In the brush country, it's not a thing. Now you go where you were fishing, Port Mansfield, again, nilgai. There's some other exotics in that area, but it's pretty much the hill country and then that coastal area.
And now it's a little bit like it's not limited to the high fence stuff. Like some of these things have gotten out over time, and they're just, doing their thing.
Yeah, a lot of people kill axis deer free range and are proud of it, and they should be.
Yeah,
that's axis deer to me are a little bit more wary than a whitetail. So
a little more tuned in, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is that because they are in some ways more desirable? Or they're just I
just think like inherently they're just a little more skittish. So
what for somebody not familiar, maybe a friend of mine
asking for a friend.
Yeah, exactly. Axis deer. I'm trying to go through my mental photograph list of different types of deer. What do they look like
spotted
again?
The horns kind of it's one main beam that has a little brow tine.
Giant horned fawns.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they're not fawns, but they have that.
Oh, they're bigger than whitetail. They average 200, 180, 200 pounds.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I get what you're talking about with the spots and
White
stuff
spots,
like that. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Very cool.
It's interesting to learn about all the exotics in Texas. Like fallow deer are cantankerous sons of bitches. Like a lot of people I know put fallow deer on, and they're like, well, let's get rid of these things as fast as we can because they will take over a feeder. They fight. They break fences. They're ornery.
A little ornery.
And they're bigger than axis too. Like they get 300 pounds,
Jeez.
250, 300 pounds. And yeah, it's just
kind of like that
there's
hierarchy of
the instant regret of, oh no, now what do we do with these fallow deer? Let's kill them all. Let's get them off of this property.
And when somebody has them on a property like that, they're essentially like, what's the word? Pets?
No, these
like
are,
do you have to, if you bring an exotic on,
mm-hmm.
is there a tag you have to buy in Texas? It's like, oh, I'm buying an access deer tag, or like if it's on a high fence property, they can go out and just shoot at any time, right?
I think you still have to have a hunting license. It's always changing. We just made it to where you no longer have to have a hunting license to hunt hogs in Texas.
Okay, interesting.
So no license required. I don't know if it's the same for exotics.
Yeah.
It's never applied. I mean, I always have a license, so it's never something.
Right.
But you don't have to tag the animal.
That's where I was getting
Yeah.
at with the pet. The pets thing is probably the wrong terminology, but I was trying to figure out. Well,
Yeah.
you
No, you
it's
just
like, you
take
don't
it
have
to
to have
the-
a hunting license to go and put your old dog down because it's whatever. It's like a private.
You just drop it off at the processor.
Like more of like a livestock situation.
Yeah, that's the thing I was looking for. Yeah. That's kind of what it's like, though, right?
Yeah.
You got to have a hunting license, but then you can just go at any time, essentially. right?
Anytime, no closed season. You could shoot them at night with thermal.
Really?
Shoot them with a spotlight. Yeah.
Wow.
I haven't, but you
Huh.
can.
Okay.
They do a lot of management. Like, say you've got too many black buck on your place. They do a lot of management like that. And then they have like an exotic meat cooler company.
Mm-hmm.
Bring their cooler with. They've got to have like a Texas Health Commission inspector there, whatever it is, inspecting the meat, and then they can put it on the market and sell it. They do a lot of that with nilgai.
Yeah.
All right.
Mhm. You'll see nilgai in restaurants.
That's super cool.
Good
I think
stuff.
Oh, yeah.
one of the coolest things, or one cool thing, I think, is like when you're talking about some of that hill country, South Texas stuff. If you were to go on a hunt down there, you like number one, it's a cool opportunity, right? Cool opportunity to hit the rut later, which is like maybe outside of like some of the primary stuff that an out-of-state person might be doing. And then you might not never know what you're going to see.
Yeah.
Get some cool opportunities at some
Javelina.
Neat
That's
critters.
something like a bonus animal that people that hunt down in South Texas, lots of javelina.
Yep.
A lot. A lot of Texans don't know. You're only allowed to shoot 2 a year. I mean, there are people out there that shoot a lot more than that. And they consider them a nuisance.
Do a lot of them just think, well, maybe not a lot of them, but do some of them just think it's a hog and they're like, it's a hog?
I just think they don't. They just treat them like coyotes.
Oh.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
That's so
A lot of people shoot them and don't even eat them. I'm just like, what's the point?
That does not make sense to me. When I was
They,
in,
like I said, they could treat them as a pest.
Yeah.
And
Right.
they have a stigma that's like the meat's not edible, and they do kind of smell. But I've cooked them, and they're perfectly fine.
yeah, I mean they got a little bit of a funk to them, but
They have a scent gland
right.
that you have to cut out, and once you've done that, it's
Boy, we had a lot of fun hunting them. We didn't shoot one, but we had a lot of fun hunting them. I know that.
Came close.
yeah.
Uncomfortably close.
Yeah, when I was in Texas, we were glassing up this this area, and I don't think there were any aoudad up in there, but there were a bunch of collared peccary.
Mm-hmm. There you go. There's the correct terminology.
And like I wanted to go after them. The guys they're like, yeah, well, we can do that anytime. I'm like, dude, like I'm as interested in these things as I am in aoudad.
Yeah.
And so like it was kind of like we did it democratically, and my vote lost. But and then I ended up not shoot. We saw tons of javelina, and I still have not yet shot one, Jim. I wanted to get one and eat it and
This
see
sounds
what
like
that was about.
me arguing with my PH in South Africa about baboons. I'm like, I want to shoot a baboon. He's like, they're a nuisance. Why? Just who cares? If we see one, we'll shoot one.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, there they are. He's like, no, let's go hunt like Plains game. I'm like, I've shot at baboons like at 500 yards as they're running away, but I haven't hit one yet.
Those things are pretty crazy. They're mean. I hear like horribly, very like.
Those are the ones that'll go for your crotchal area, right?
I don't know.
If they attack.
I'll defer to Cable on this one.
They're
those
just
chips.
they look at baboons like we look at feral hogs, like a nuisance, but without the joy of year-round hunting. They're just like, dude, they trap them. They don't want them in their wheat field. They eat their wheat. When camp is uninhabited, they're in camp tearing stuff up. So, and then like
Yeah, they're pesky.
all the water troughs and pumps that they're trying to make sure the wildlife has access to water. The baboons get in there and break that stuff. So they do not, they don't look at them very kindly.
Not.
What are they going to do that for?
I don't know,
Just,
man.
I'm a baboon. There's things I can mess up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Go
gonna.
and do it.
But the big males, I don't have any interest in shooting a troop of baboons, but I do want a big male, like the European mount. I think with those big old canine teeth would be pretty awesome.
I think they can be. I feel like I've heard some horrendous stories that involve baboons. Like even like, I want to go back and. Ask
They're probably
about
true.
that. Yeah, like not like of like acts that the baboons are committing.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Egregious.
Boy, we've gone from deer to exotics to baboons. You never know where the Vortex Nation podcast is going to take you.
You want to hear
guys.
something
right.
interesting?
Yeah.
I shot a free-range fallow deer in Africa in February.
Okay.
And the British, when they colonized that part of South Africa, they kind of viewed the wild game there as like too gamey. So they brought in these fallow deer. And now the fallow deer have just like the axis deer have done in Texas, like they have proliferated and they're rutting in February. Because I'd always gone in like July, which is their winter.
Yeah.
So I was there more in like their spring, summer, and that's when the fallow deer were rutting. So we went into the mountains and spent a whole day glassing. I'm pretty sure it was with my new Diamondback spotter.
Okay.
And found a couple bucks that were bachelored up, and sat there, and laid there for like 3 hours for him to stand up, and then shot him at 470 yards from up on a ridge. It was so cool. It's on YouTube, John X Safari's channel, but it was one of my favorite hunts, and it's not even an African game.
I was actually gonna ask if that was like one of your, because I could even tell just the way you're talking about it, like that was like one of your like most favorite Africa experiences.
It was so cool, and because I'd always seen them, but they were all busted up post rut, and the guy's like, "Yeah, you need to be here earlier in the year," and I was like, "But I always come in July." Well, COVID happened, and so that hunt in 2020 got canceled. So we were like the first Americans back into Africa in February. We were at the bar at the airport, and the waiter was like, "Will y'all please come eat here?" And we're like, "That's kind of weird that you're like so aggressive about it, but sure." He's like, "No, y'all are just the first Americans we've seen in a year." So it was, eye-opening. And they need that commerce, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that is, interesting. What about, so now we covered fallow deer a little bit, which are a deer. So we're getting back on track, Jim.
We are on deer.
I have to ask, so I remember growing up and I'd see Texas hunting on TV. But at the time I didn't really know it was like Texas hunting. It was just these people hunting deer. I grew up hunting blacktails, which are probably one of the first things from, hunting in, South Texas where I see these hunts. And man, a guy would sit on the ground, generally in blue jeans and plain clothes, and clash some horns together, and about 50 bucks, I'm exaggerating, but like bucks would come a-running. And then I would try those things at home, and no bucks come a-running. No, actually, I should say
Probably went the other way.
Blacktails do respond to rattling, but not to the degree that I was seeing. And I was like, what is this strange land of Texas and rattling bucks? What's the scoop on that? I feel like it was kind of pioneered in Texas.
Oh, yeah. South Texas, brush country. You've got every truck has a set of rattling horns in it, or every backpack, if you're being dropped off in a blind. Yeah, it's.
Does it work as good as what I saw?
It's not like TV, no. But
okay.
They do come. I'm not going to say 5 bucks are going to show up every time. One might not even show up, but that's okay because you're on 4,000 acres. He didn't come here. Let's drive over here, a quarter mile and try again. And, it is a very successful technique.
Why is it that down there they respond to it so well?
Man, I don't know why. I don't know if it's a buck to doe ratio thing, but they do.
Just like the herd has managed to a point where there's so much competition for maybe limited does that they're just like.
Well, ideally these places want a 1-to-1 ratio.
Oh, 1-to-1.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, it gives you an idea of the competition level.
Yeah.
Those the ones that really put a thought into management. You're trying to get to that 1.5 to 1 to 1-to-1. Somewhere in that range is like that's where the sweet spot is. Where you're going to see a lot of deer, whether you're sitting in a tripod or a high rack of a truck, you're going to see deer with those numbers.
That's interesting.
Bucks.
And you think about it with that 1-to-1 ratio. If 2 bucks are fighting and preoccupied, they're probably also fighting over a doe, perhaps. That leaves room to slip in, i.e. these intruder bucks, if you will.
Calls.
Slide into the DMs.
Just slide right into the DMs.
They do it, for sure.
As a, gosh, I can't believe we're over. This time has gone by fast. Let's cap on this, Jim.
All right.
Unless you're not ready to cap.
Mark, I'm following your lead. We're talking deer, Mark. So
Fair enough.
This is all you.
You can lead the Vortex Drives podcast next time. Born and raised Texas. I mean, you've hunted a lot of places. What do you love? What do you love about Texas and Texas deer hunting? Like, if you're gonna try and nail it down, maybe that's too tough a question.
No, I think there's 2 things. The opportunity to shoot a nice buck is, very available for any hunter. So it's a land of riches for big bucks. Number 2, I just love our culture of, if you are blessed enough to have a lease, or you have family land, it's one of those properties that's been broken down X number of times over the years, but you've still got 500 acres, whatever. I love the family aspect of, taking my kids out there. And we don't have a minimum hunting age. Like, my son's 8. I know a lot of states, you're not allowed to hunt at 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And since I do this for a living, was very careful with my kids about not forcing it on them. Of course, they want to come, but do they want to pull the trigger? So I waited for Henry to say, I want to shoot a deer. I said, okay. Well, during COVID, we practiced our asses off and got him good with a 22-50. And so that was so affirming for me as a dad and as a hunter to, like I said, I grew up bass fishing. My son shot his first deer at 8 years old. So he's got a major jump start from where I was. But yeah, I love that. The wife comes, the kids come, all 5 of us sit in a big blind. It's just a family event. So I think that is a big part of it. And that's not transcendent to just Texas. That's everywhere.
Yeah.
But that's my favorite part of deer hunting.
I like it. And, I think Wisconsin is similar. We don't have a min age to hunt big game anymore. And I think what you talked about there, is a really great way to do it. My girls are 6 and 7 right now, so they're probably, getting to that time frame where, maybe they'll start, thinking about it or asking about it a little bit more. But to your point, you were able to, I guess, capitalize on that point where that interest happened, instead of you got to wait till you're 12 if we're going to really do this. And it's by 12 you might be, which aren't bad things, but basketball, football, whatever you get in, you've got a big gap there to get interested in other things, and you may not develop that passion for hunting that could have been a really big, important part of your life that you end up missing out on. So, and
they're also spoiled rotten because of all the nice optics they get to use. Yeah,
that does help.
Someone was looking at Henry's 17 HMR, and they're like, that's a lot of scope for that gun. I was like, we're very fortunate.
You got to be well equipped.
Yep.
You got to be well equipped.
It is nice to, part of the excitement is seeing them. And if you see them and it's all hazy and dark and you can't tell what's going on, it's not fun.
We're joking around, but 100% right. That is truly part of that overall experience, whether you're glassing, right? You got a set of binos. Well, if you can't see through them, or they're, it's that's not an enjoyable experience. So that sucked. Mm-hmm. Okay, that part was lame. Or you got a scope and it doesn't have good eye relief, and you're getting a lot of scope shadow and field of view, whatever. Okay, well, boom, you shoot and you get scope eye. Well, that wasn't fun,
right?
So it really does play into that your overall experience, whether you're just getting into it or a youth or an adult. I know that's one of my favorite parts of the hunt is glassing. Glass. I love glassing. Deer and glassing, fun. Jim, 2 of my favorite things.
Yeah. Maybe even your 2 most favorite things.
It could be.
I like, it's very rewarding when you're the Texan going over to Africa and you're picking out stuff with your spotting scope and showing it to your PH. So when you go to Africa, because I know it should be on your bucket list. But
I know. I have not been, but I do think about it. Paul Neese was just in Africa.
we were on the same flight.
This is
No
crazy.
way.
The Cable and I were talking about
That
this.
is
He's like,
so
"Oh yeah,
Neese.
I saw Paul on the plane to Africa. It is so Neese."
In Doha, like Qatar. It's like, oh, hey, Paul.
Fancy meeting you here. Paul has a knack for that. He was in a wilderness area, and Brad Brooks, who we just chatted with a little bit, great guy, Brad Brooks, Argali, was they ran into each other in the wilderness area.
Wow.
Like, how many thousands of middle of nowhere acres? Like, oh hey, who's that? Oh hey, Paul.
Running into Paul Neese would be, that would almost make the hunt for me.
Exactly. I can go home now.
I guess I'm in a good place.
saw-
Paul Neese is here.
I saw
Must
Neese.
be a good spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how you know you've arrived. Cable, thanks so much for swinging by Vortex. It's awesome having you here.
It's great to be here.
And obviously, just enjoy you and the show and everything, and working together. It's always fun, and just looking forward
It's
to
mutual.
the next adventure.
So thank you guys.
Yeah. And for everybody who's wondering out there, see, this is proof that we do indeed like Texas. Right, Mark?
You got us in a little bit of hot water a while ago, Jim. It wasn't intentional.
No, it wasn't intentional. We had a Wisconsin versus Texas. Little competition. Friendly. But anyway, if you're in Texas and you're a big Texas hunter, tell us why you love it. Hunting deer down there and other stuff too. Like Cable mentioned, there's some other stuff, but otherwise, drop us a line in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube or over on Instagram at Vortex Nation Podcast. See you on the next one.
See you on the next one. We'll see you in Texas.
All right,
Cheers.
bye.
Bye.
There you have it, folks. Thank you very much for listening. As usual, give this video a like if you liked it, comment something below, and give us a subscribe to the Vortex Nation podcast channel. It would mean a lot to us. Also, why don't you give us a follow over on Instagram while you're at it, at Vortex Nation Podcast. We'd love to hear from you over there, and we'll keep you updated with all kinds of cool photos and videos from our adventures that we do here. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one. Thank you again. Happy hunting and shooting, everybody. Have a good one.